Good day, everyone. We are Modula and Podrick.
Let's dig into what is going on in tech and science news.
Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to dive deep into the global battle for the future of electric vehicles. And let me tell you, it's a story with a massive twist, where the real fight, well, it isn't happening where you think it is. This quote, this really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The biggest fight in the auto industry isn't the one grabbing all the headlines. You know, while everyone's focused on tariffs and assembly lines, there's a much, much more important war being waged for the raw materials that are going to power everything in the next century. Okay, so first, let's look at the story that's getting all the attention, what we're calling the Great American Detour. On the surface, it looks like a classic trade fight. You've got U.S. tariffs pushing huge Japanese car makers like Subaru and Toyota to completely rethink their American investments. And the headlines are all focused on this massive number, an estimated $25 billion in annual losses for these companies. So the story becomes simple, right? It's a fight over where cars get bolted together. But here's the thing, that's the decoy. This slide really lays out the two different battlefields. The 20th century fight, that was all about steel, assembly lines, and tariffs on finished cars. But the real war, the 21st century war, that's about lithium. It's about nickel, and it's about who controls the mineral supply chains, the absolute foundation of every single EV. And this brings us to Canada's winning hand. See, as all these car makers pivot away from the old fights and the uncertainty, they are all landing in one country. And this isn't just about dodging tariffs. No, this is a huge strategic play to lock down the future. You see, Canada offers this perfect one-two punch that's pretty much unbeatable right now. It has political and trade stability, which is suddenly a very hot commodity, and it's a raw material superpower. It is sitting on enormous, easy-to-get-to reserves of the exact minerals EV industry desperately needs to survive. And look, this isn't just some idea on a whiteboard. The proof is literally in the concrete being poured. Global giants from Germany, Japan, South Korea, they're pumping tens of billions of dollars into building the entire supply chain in Canada. We're talking everything from processing plants to massive battery gigafactories. But hold on. Here's where the whole story takes a sharp turn. Because having rocks full of minerals in the ground, that's just chapter one. Turning those rocks into the ultra-pure stuff you need for batteries, that is a completely different world. And this brings us to what we'll call the 90% problem. Now, this difference is absolutely critical. Mining is, it's just digging ore out of the ground. Processing, though, that's some seriously complex industrial chemistry. You're using a whole cocktail of acids and solvents to purify these materials. One is brute force. The other's where the real economic and geopolitical power is. I love this analogy. Think about it. It doesn't really matter who grows the coffee beans if one single player owns 90% of all the coffee roasters in the world, right? When one entity controls the entire middle of the process, the part that makes the resource actually usable, that entity holds all the cards. And in the world of critical minerals, that entity is China. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, China processes nearly 90% of the world's rare earths. Just let that sink in for a second. Even the ore that gets dug up at the main U.S. mine in California gets put on a ship and sent to China to be processed. So this reality check, it throws up three massive, interconnected hurdles for Canada's big ambition. This is the point where the dream of becoming a resource powerhouse slams right into a very, very hard wall. First up is what some have called the green trap. It's this deep irony. To build a green economy, you need some very, very dirty processing. But Canada's legal system is built in layers: federal, provincial, and a constitutional duty to consult First Nations, all demanding extreme environmental care. And that's before you even get to the politically radioactive issue of what to do with the waste, which naturally includes low-level radioactive materials. And the result of all this process? A timeline that is just staggering. The International Energy Agency says the global average time from finding a mineral deposit to actually producing a refined product is 16 years. 16! That's a decade and a half of permits, consultations, and construction before a single ounce comes out of a fully operational mine. The second hurdle is all about capital risk, and boy, is there a cautionary tale for this one. Let's talk about Molycorp, the American company that tried to go toe-to-toe with China's dominance and failed spectacularly. So after a price spike, Molycorp raised a boatload of money, over $1 billion, to build a cutting-edge U.S. processing plant. So what happened? It's simple. China just opened its export taps, flooded the global market with cheap minerals, and crashed the price. Molycorp's expensive, responsibly made product couldn't compete, and by 2015, they were bankrupt. The brutal lesson here is that a private Western company, one that has to make a profit for its shareholders, simply cannot win a price war against a state-sponsored monopoly that can afford to lose money forever just to keep control of the market. And the final hurdle? Well, it's about as basic as it gets: infrastructure. Many of Canada's most amazing deposits, like the famous Ring of Fire in Ontario, are way out in the middle of nowhere, hundreds of kilometers from the nearest road or railroad or power line. They are quite literally rocks in a swamp. Okay, so if Canada can't realistically compete with China on price or on speed or on sheer scale, then what is its actual role in this new resource war? What's the point? Well, it means we have to reframe the entire question. And the answer is this: Canada isn't meant to be a commercial competitor. It's something else entirely. It's a strategic insurance policy. Think of it as a high-cost, slow-to-develop, but politically stable source of supply that the West can turn to only if and when the main supplier decides to cut them off completely. And make no mistake, this insurance policy is absolutely vital, because these minerals, they're not just for cars, they are the bedrock of modern national security. From the fancy sensors in an F-35 fighter jet to the guidance systems in a nuclear submarine, the entire Western military arsenal runs on this stuff. And this all leaves us with a really difficult final question. Given the national security stakes, and given those 16-year timelines, should Western governments just bypass their own tough environmental and legal standards to get these projects moving faster? Or do we have to stick to our principles, even if it means we lose the resource race? It's a profound dilemma, a real trade-off between our immediate security and our long-term values.